Fresh meat.
Yeah. I was gonna say I actually was just I just saw you on Dennis Miller the other night, and I would say Citizen Arcane is probably one of my favorite specials, and a great interview too. I had no idea that that the sport was so contentious when it came out. I didn't know about the John McCain thing. I didn't know that they referred to it as blood sport. I felt like I learned a lot. I always just thought it was a smooth transition.
No, anything but smooth, honestly. Yeah, Senator McCain had strong ties to Budweiser. Budweiser was getting very nervous that our pay-per-view numbers were getting up where they were, and boxing was struggling. So there was some political motivation for him to do what he did. But honestly, what he did was force us to run the regulation. And that was the best thing for the sport. Made it more mainstreamable, made people be able to understand it, go into the 10-point must system in rounds versus what we were doing in the early days. All those things led to the popularity and solidifying this sport as the combative sport for this generation.
Yeah, I mean, MMA basically put boxing away. I mean, that's crazy. In my lifetime, I saw the birth of one and the end of one, honestly.
It's disenchanting when you watch a match and you know the guy that you believe won, and then the decisions come back disparaging in the other way, and it's frustrating. I think people have just become a little disenchanted. People padding their records, trying to get, to 40-0. I'm not going to use names or an example.
We know, doing fake jobs, doing fighting celebrities or fighting YouTubers. Yeah.
Well, and the thing now, the trend in these crossover fights. I mean, that Triller is going on tomorrow night with Evander Holyfield and Vitor Belfort, Tito Ortiz and Anderson Silva. And it's a boxing match. The boxing has gotten smart. Now they're trying to do these crossover fights and capitalize on the popularity of mixed martial arts. And I like it because they're shining a light on the disparaging difference between pay in boxing and MMA. How is it that a guy like Jake Paul makes more money in his 2 boxing matches than any of those MMA fighters have made in their entire careers? That's crazy.
Let me jump in. I saw the movie at the flashback weekend, and I was really, really happy to see that the crowd got all the beats, that they cheered when they should, they laughed when they should. It was the Manson Brothers. It's such a wacky, zany, kind of dirty, old school movie, and that's what I like. There's a charm to it that you don't see now. There's no overriding message. It's just fun. What I was going to ask is something like this is slightly different, I would say, at least a little bit than what I'm used to seeing you in. How did you get involved in this?
Well, I've been friends with Max Martini since back in the unit days. We played in the unit. I did a couple episodes in the unit. I met him there. We just kept crossing paths. I'd go to read for another feature film. He'd be in the waiting room getting ready to read for the same movie. We just stayed in touch. We became friends and stayed in touch. Started seeing him at a charity event with Kevin Carter down in Nashville. We'd spend 3 or 4 days together at this charity event and have a blast in Nashville, and we just stayed in touch. And he reached out to me about being in part of this movie he was directing, sent me the script. I read the script, laughed out loud at a lot of the stuff that's in the script, and he was shooting in Santa Fe. And I said, yeah, man, I got the time. Let's do this. And so spent 3 weeks there in Santa Fe shooting this movie about 3 years ago. Had a blast, great group of guys. Chris Margetis and Mike Carey become very good friends. They're great guys. Freddie Joe Farnsworth did all the stunt coordinating. He's a great guy, former Marine. Mike Carey was a former Marine. I have an affinity for these guys that have worn the uniform because I wore the uniform as well in the 80s. So we just got along great, had a great time, and just had the feeling while we were making this movie that it had that cult classic kind of feel. It's so quirky and fun that I think people are going to really dig it. And who knew, a full year before anybody had even heard of COVID, that we're talking about a Chinese HGH and a virus. I mean, we're telling for sure. We're scratching our heads a year later going, what the heck?
How does playing something like this differ than something like in the Expendables or something where you're there's more commanding? I guess I feel like you're more of a comedian, or at least you're more witty, you know?
Well, and I think that's a credit to their writing. I think if I was trying to be funny, it probably wouldn't be funny at all. But if you put me in the right circumstance, and the way that's written, I can play that. I'm not trying to be funny, but it comes off funny because of the situations and the way they wrote it. And I think that's a tribute to them. I certainly want to step outside the box. Everybody sees me as the physical fighter that kind of brings that authenticity to those action roles. I would love to do a rom-com. This was fun to do a comedy. I did a comedic Western with Michael Jai White a couple years ago that hasn't come out yet too, Outlaw Johnny Black, which is a sequel to a movie he did 20 years ago. And it was, tongue in cheek, but a Western along the lines of Blazing Saddles, but not Blazing Saddles, obviously, because you could never make that movie now.
No.
But it was still outside the box. It was comedic. It was in the Western genre, which has actually been one of my favorite genres as a kid growing up. And this fit that mold too, something that's outside the box, something different. People will say, oh, that's that guy that used to fight. And that's why I liked it.
Boss Rutten's role. I mean, the guy had comedic timing like no other. I felt like he kind of stole the scenes. You and him are old friends, right? You guys actually owned a gym together, correct?
Boss Rutten and I owned a gym with Jeremy Lappin and a guy named Chris in Hollywood for a little while. And, it was called Legends. It was up on Hawthorne and La Brea, right there in the heart of Hollywood. And there were no real MMA gyms in the LA area. LA is a very jiu-jitsu centric town. There's lots of jiu-jitsu schools, but no pure kind of MMA schools. So we thought we'd do well. And it did okay for a while. But it was tough. It's a tough market. It's a tough place to find a gym where you have the appropriate parking to be able to have that type of business.
Out there.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of hoops that made it difficult to do well there. But it was there. We kind of, I moved to Vegas, started Extreme Couture. Boss went over into the Valley and started his own gym there where we didn't have all these partners and all this other stuff going on that we didn't have control over. And that, I think that appealed to both of us. We both kind of divested in Legends. It was struggling. The management wasn't really on point. There was a lot of things going on there, but it was a really cool place for a while.
Because Boss Rutten probably steals a lot of scenes in this. I'll be honest. His comedic chops are impressive too. I'm like, man.
I've been friends with Boss forever. We've done seminars together. We've traveled together. We've been at appearances and a bunch of stuff together for way back in the day. We were supposed to fight each other. That just never materialized. I have a lot of respect for him. He has that gregarious personality that's infectious. You can't be around him and not giggle and not laugh because he is just almost to the point of being zany. He's a great guy. I love him. And it would be fun to maybe we're long lost brothers or something that, we got separated at birth and he was raised in Europe and I was raised in the US because weren't using the same barber.
I let you go, man. I do appreciate you. The Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre. It actually comes out today. VOD, digital. And then if you're in Chicago, it's at the Music Box on the 16th.
Yeah.
Touch, is it me or gotten a lot bigger since we saw you in Amarillo last month?
Jack Cage got a hold of this new GH for me. Black market? It's gonna turn me into a freaking monster. Yo, Dutch, you okay, brother?
Means, are you okay?
What the hell happened?
He fell on top of me. He just started mumbling about being thirsty or something, like he was in a trance. And
Oh, Dutch was sick like that. My heart!
We are cancelado. The power's out everywhere. The city is locked down.
Uh-oh.